Service Act, and I hope the opposition can understand the positive effects this legislation will offer service animals. Please work with us and please pass this important law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The time for government orders has expired. Statements by members. Déclaration de député, l'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Bar-Richolet-Nicolette, Ascenseur. Mr. Speaker, the President and Leader of the Bloc Québécois, Mario Beaulieu and Gilles Duceppe, were on Parliament Hill this morning, along with 18 men and women candidates, to send a very simple message. The Bloc Québécois is back in full force in Ottawa. The generosity and selflessness of Mario Beaulieu testify to the fact that for sovereigntists, the cause comes before individuals. This is noble and admirable, as is the decision of Mr. Gilles Duceppe to serve once again Quebec's interests and the interests of the independence movement. Congratulations to these two men and to all those who put Quebec before their personal interests. Mr. Speaker, a new political cycle is beginning in Quebec. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, today I want to rise to recognize the extraordinary life and career and community commitment by Mr. Dave Babbitt. He has been the music teacher at Wallaceburg District Secondary School for the past 39 years and is retiring at the end of June. Last night, a packed crowd honored Mr. Babbitt at a moving concert tribute performed by current and former students. Mr. Speaker, in addition to an exemplary teacher, Dave Babbitt is an outstanding musician in his own right. He has freely given thousands of hours of his time over the years to local community groups, and he's kept the sound of the big band music alive in his own brass ensemble known as the Brass Factory. Every Remembrance Day, you'll find Mr. Babbitt at the Wallaceburg Legion honoring our fallen heroes with taps and the last post. Thank you, Dave, for all that you have done. We offer you the congratulations in your retirement and all the best.
The Honourable Member for La Salle-et-Mar. Mr. Speaker, on March 6th, during a citizenship ceremony, a young 16-year-old member of a family in La Salle was unfairly denied his certificate of citizenship when he recited the oath. An unidentified man arbitrarily decided that the young man had not recited the oath, whereas the September 2011 directive stipulating that a candidate must be seen reciting the oath was removed following Judge Boswell's ruling. This family has had to suffer the discriminatory actions implemented by Conservative ministers of immigration, which are indiscriminately used during citizenship ceremonies. I ask the Minister of Immigration to repair the harm done to this family by formally apologizing in writing by June 23, 2015, at the latest, on behalf of the Government of Canada for the unfair and unnecessary harm this situation caused this family.
The Honourable Member for Wild Rose.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate one of my constituents, Mr. Ed Pichet, who recently received a Special Service Medal from NATO for his service in Germany as part of the Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry. The Special Service Medal was created to recognize members of the Canadian Forces who took part in activities and operations under exceptional circumstances and dedicated honourable service within NATO's area of responsibility. Mr. Pichet first joined the Canadian Forces in 1960, and he spent 9 years in the service. He first joined the infantry ranks to become a paratrooper and joined the 1st Battalion, and also served as a rifleman and an APC driver. Tomorrow night, I will have the chance to personally honour Mr. Pichet at the Cochrane Legion amongst his friends and colleagues for his honourable service, and thank him and all Canadian men and women in uniform for helping to keep our country strong and free.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Speaker, I rise to honour Gordon Hansford and the Annapolis Valley Tartan. 30 years ago, the King's Scott Pipe Band was discussing which tartan to wear and thought that the Valley ought to have one of its own. 2 of its members went to work. Mr. Hansford came up with the design, and it was weaved by the late Joyce Pickwell. The Annapolis Valley is known for its beautiful landscape, and the tartan captures it perfectly. As Mr. Hansford's poem says, there's a The green of the trees and the crops the farmers love to grow. The blue is for the mountains north and south. And the silver for the two rivers that flow down to the sea. The red depicts the blood that's been shed to keep us free. Today marks the one-year anniversary of the tartan's official registration with the Scottish Register of Tartans, and I call on this House to recognize the great work of Gordon Hansford and the late Joyce Pickwell, as well as the Clan Donald Canada for its part in getting the Annapolis Valley tartan recognized. Congratulations to all, and thank you.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Lanark, Frontenac, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, for over a decade there has been an automated external defibrillator, or AED, in the trunk of every cruiser in the Ottawa Police Services, 145 in total. In 2012, this resulted in 9 successful saves of heart attack victims. In 2013, 8 lives were saved. That's an average of 1 life saved per every 17 AEDs annually. AEDs purchased in bulk cost less than $1,000 apiece. That means it would cost only $5 million to place an AED in every one of Canada's 5,600 RCMP cruisers, and less than $4 million to place an AED in every one of the 4,000 cruisers of the Ontario and Quebec police forces. Now let's do some math. At 1 life saved per 17 AEDs, these 9,000 units could save over 500 lives each year. And since an AED lasts 10 years, we could save 5,000 lives over the next decade at a cost of $2,000 per life. Saving lives, Mr. Speaker, has never, ever been cheaper. So let's make this happen.
What?
The honourable member for Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to first recognize that we are standing on unceded Algonquin territory. On this day in 2008, the Prime Minister and Parliament issued a historic apology for the devastating impacts of residential schools. It's been 8 years and Indigenous peoples are still waiting for action from this government. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations are a roadmap. As Justice Sinclair said, words are not enough. Reconciliation requires deliberate, thoughtful, and sustained action. As part of reconciliation, the federal government must close the funding gap between Indigenous peoples and non-Indigenous Canadians. And we must go further. During the TRC ceremonies, many spoke out online, including the formidable Tanya Tagak, who said, "My reconciliation includes abolishment of the myths that keep alive the undercurrent of abject racism." Together, we must work for true reconciliation that recognizes history, that strives for change, and builds a future founded on respect of all. Thank you.
The honourable member for North Vancouver.
Mabuhay! June the 12th marks Philippines Independence Day. Throughout the weekend, Filipinos in my riding of North Vancouver will be celebrating the 117th anniversary of the Declaration of Philippine Independence with delicious food, lively music, dancing, and vibrant cultural presentations. Canada has strong bilateral ties with the Philippines, where we share a mutual commitment to democracy, good governance, rule of law, peace, and human rights. Canadians played a leading role following the devastation of Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 by giving more than $85 million in eligible donations, which were then matched by our government. These donations helped international aid organizations provide life-saving water, food, and medicine on the ground. Our Canadian Forces Disaster Response Team was integral in providing much-needed sanitation and logistical support. In 2014, our government was proud to make the Philippines one of 25 countries of focus in our international development efforts. On this happy occasion, I want to wish all of my Filipino friends Maligayang Araw ng Kalayaan.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, last weekend was, of course, Decoration Day, which commemorates the sacrifice of Canadian and Allied soldiers as they stormed the beaches of Normandy on June the 6th, 1944. I had the great privilege of attending 2 such commemorations in my riding over the weekend, one with Branch 15 of the Royal Canadian Legion and one with Branch 609. I have to say it's very encouraging to see how many cadets come out to those services to honour our brave men and women in the armed forces. Brampton has a tradition, actually, on Decoration Day. We place Canadian flags on the graves of all of our fallen soldiers and veterans. It was wonderful to see so many people come out and support the community on that day. I want to personally thank Branch 15 and Branch 609 for making such great efforts to keep this tradition alive and make sure that we do not forget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Algoma, Manitoulin. L'honorable député de Beauharnois-Salaberry.
The Honourable Member for Beauharnois-Salaberry. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, agriculture is in my riding's DNA. Les Jardins de Napierville are even known as the Garden of Quebec because of the quality of their fruit and vegetables. To support our producers, I tabled Bill C-539 to promote local food. Unfortunately, the Conservative government did not vote in favour of my initiative, despite the support that it received throughout Canada, including from the UPA, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, and the 2,000 individuals who signed my petition. I continue, though, to promote buying local food. This time it will be in the shape of a report that will soon be broadcast. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, my microphone is not working. Can I begin again? Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, agriculture is in my riding's DNA. The Jardins de Napierville are even known as the Garden of Quebec because of the quality of their fruit and vegetables. To support our producers, I tabled Bill C-539 to support and promote local food. The Conservative government, unfortunately, did not vote in favour of my initiative, despite the support it received throughout Canada, including from the UPA, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, and the 2,000 individuals who signed my petition. I continue to promote buying local food. This time, it will be in the shape of a report that will soon be broadcast on TV Cogeco. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the producers, restaurants, and teachers who agreed to participate in this project. I would also like to thank Marie-Ève Rochefort and Nathalie Descoteaux for their invaluable collaboration. Mr. Speaker, at the national level, the NDP continues its work, and we continue to promote local food by encouraging everyone to buy food from Valleyfield, to buy food from the Jardins de Napierville and local producers, because when you buy locally, you promote local food production.
Honourable member for Sault Ste. Marie. Sault Ste. Marie. No, sorry. I'm sorry. Don Valley West. Honourable member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud of our Conservative government for standing up for Canada's middle class and not standing in their way. We introduced the universal child care benefit and family tax cut to keep more money in the pockets of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you our plan is working. In Don Valley West and across Canada, we're making sure 100% of families with children benefit with almost $2,000 back in their pockets. The contrast is simple. The Liberals and NDP believe bureaucracy knows best when it comes to Canadian families, and we believe in keeping money in the hands of the real experts on families. Their names are Mom and Dad. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Mr. Speaker, anglers contribute over $8.5 billion a year to the economy, and a lot of that comes from visitors, which is why it is so short-sighted when the government targets tourism infrastructure in cost-cutting exercises. This fact is not lost on the outfitters and businesses that depend on tourism in Northern Ontario. This year is expected to be a big season with an exchange rate that will attract more American anglers. While there is no need of great places to wet a line in Canada, nothing compares to the variety and quality found in Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing. With 2 Great Lakes and thousands of inland lakes, rivers, and streams, visitors can chase salmon, trout, bass, muskie, and walleye, with the chance to catch the fish of a lifetime. When they aren't on the water, people can fill their days with memories that will never fade. Festivals, powwows, museums, and markets bustle with activity, and our businesses are always ready to greet you with some legendary northern hospitality. So I encourage everyone to visit Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing, where the only thing better than the fishing is the way we treat our guests.
For Sault Ste. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, the hardworking middle-class workers of Sault Ste. Marie reject the Liberal leaders' plan to impose a mandatory $1,000 tax hike. By promising to enforce the Ontario Liberals' dramatic hike in payroll tax across Canada, the Liberal leader would hike every middle-class family's taxes, and it would force employers to cut jobs, hours, and wages. According to the Meridian Credit Union, the majority of Ontario small business owners believe this could be their greatest challenge ever faced. Instead of introducing reckless high tax plans, our government believes in helping families succeed. We lowered taxes to the tune of $6,600 this year for a typical family. We expanded the tax-free savings account so Canadians can save more tax-free. Mr. Speaker, now is not the time for risky, high-tax Liberal schemes and untested leadership. Thank you.
The honourable member for St. Paul.
7 years ago, the Prime Minister of Canada stood in this chamber and apologized to the survivors of residential schools. Today, 7 years later, we are concerned that many Canadians are still unaware of this dark chapter in Canadian history. Achieving meaningful reconciliation is not only the responsibility of elected politicians, but of every Canadian. With the recent release of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations, we have a clear pathway for the essential journey of reconciliation for a policy of cultural genocide that spanned more than a century. The Prime Minister's refusal to commit to implementing the TRC recommendations has been deeply disappointing, and I urge him to immediately begin working with survivors, Aboriginal leaders, the premiers and other partners to do so. As Canadians prepare to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Confederation, we must ensure that we begin the next 150 years by completing the unfinished business of Confederation. It is time to build a renewed nation relationship with Aboriginal communities rooted in Aboriginal rights, treaties, the principles of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and the spirit of partnership, respect, and cooperation for mutual benefit.
The Honourable Member for Lotbinière de la Chaudière. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the rules have always been clear. It is not acceptable to use parliamentary resources for partisan purposes. But the House of Commons administration found that 68 members of the NDP did just that, and as a result, they owe taxpayers $2.7 million. Even though the NDP refuses to pay this money back, the House administration is making sure that taxpayers are treated fairly, and it will start collecting this money July 1st. Canadians deserve better. The NDP should show some respect to the taxpayers, do the right thing, and immediately pay back the $2.7 million they owe Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have had a good look at the depths of Conservative and Liberal entitlement thanks to the Auditor General, and they're not impressed with what they see. In the wake of the report on Senators' expenses, instead of calling for the transformational change that is needed in the Senate, the old school parties are defending the status quo. Just like the Liberals and Conservatives joined together to pass Bill C-51 in the House, they've teamed up in the Senate to block independent oversight and rig the expense arbitration process. Why? So that senators can keep policing themselves. It's unacceptable. Canadians want real change. New Democrats know that change is not only possible, it is necessary. Canadians can trust the NDP to fix the damage done by the Conservatives, to end the culture of entitlement of the old school parties and bring real change to Ottawa. On October 19th, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what we will do.
The honourable member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, the depraved genocidal death cult of ISIS continues to commit brutal crimes in Iraq and Syria, especially against women and children. ISIS has called for brutal attacks in Canada against Canadians. Ignoring this threat is not a solution. On behalf of my riding of Provencher, I want to thank the Royal Canadian Air Force for standing on guard for Canada and standing up to this threat. Our CF-18 Hornets successfully led their third air strike in Syria, hitting an ISIS compound near Al-Hazaka. This follows another successful strike against an ISIS fighting position in Baji, Iraq. Thank you to our men and women in uniform who are getting the job done.
Hear, hear. Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have the right to know what the Prime Minister knew about the Senate expense scandal. Instead, we are seeing the Prime Minister extend his European trip. Rather than answering questions that Canadians have, Canadians who are fed up with seeing their taxes wasted, has the Prime Minister become the defender of the status quo in the Senate?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you know, it was the Senate that invited the Auditor General in, and he's tabled his report. And of course, we expect the Senate to listen to those recommendations and implement them, Mr. Speaker. But as we all know, the status quo in the Senate is obviously not acceptable. That's why we fought to bring openness and transparency into the Senate, Mr. Speaker. The Supreme Court, in its wisdom, has suggested that we need unanimous support of the provinces to move forward with any reform, Mr. Speaker, and we anxiously await that.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Every time we learn more about Conservative corruption in the Senate, well, this Prime Minister suddenly finds urgent business to do on another continent.
Called hiding. Called hiding.
He had urgent business in Peru. And when the RCMP released the documents about the cover-up, suddenly he had to rush off to Europe.
Order. The government will have an opportunity to answer the question when the member for Halifax is finished asking it, but not before then. The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the RCMP released documents about the cover-up, suddenly the Prime Minister had to rush off to Europe. Now we have a devastating report about corruption in the Senate, and the Prime Minister once again isn't answering questions. Why is it that whenever there's a scandal, the Prime Minister hops on a plane?
Hear, hear!
Well, Mr. Speaker, that question just highlights that it's not only the Liberals who are incapable of ever governing this country again and that their leader's in overhead. It's the entire NDP caucus, Mr. Speaker. It's called a G7, Mr. Speaker, where the world's most powerful nations come together to talk about the economy, come together to talk about security, Mr. Speaker. Our Prime Minister was there leading the G7 with respect to improving the economy, fighting ISIL terrorism, Mr. Speaker. We're proud of that, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to do that job on behalf of Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Canadians can only marvel at how that member evades questions, but make no mistake, accountability is coming for those Conservatives.
Put them out of their misery.
Trying to distract us with make-believe. We're asking questions about real abuse of trust and public money being misspent, and the Prime Minister won't answer a single question. After promising change, why have the Conservatives now given up on doing anything to clean up the culture of corruption, waste, and entitlement in this Senate?
As I just said, obviously the status quo in the Senate is unacceptable. That's why the Auditor General came in, examined their expenses, Mr. Speaker. He submitted a report, and the Senate is taking action on that, Mr. Speaker. But as I said yesterday, Canadians don't differentiate. When parliamentarians abuse their money deliberately, they want some recourse. There are 68 members of that caucus, Mr. Speaker, who owe 3 times as much as the Auditor General identified in the Senate report. It is absolutely inappropriate, starting with their leader who owes $400,000. They should repay the money they owe Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi Bay James Nunavut. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations has joined his voice to that of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and thousands of survivors of residential schools, who are waiting for the official apologies for the role that the Catholic Church played in this sad era. The Prime Minister met with the Pope today, and can he tell us whether or not, yes or no, he asked Pope Francis to proceed with an apology?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Aboriginal Affairs has written to the provinces, the territories, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Vatican to notify them of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report and recommendations. The Prime Minister also drew attention to the letter sent by the Minister to the Holy See during his meeting with Pope Francis.
Mr. Speaker, many residential school survivors have said that an apology from the Pope would help them to find closure and healing. They were hoping that the Prime Minister would raise the issue with the Pope during his meeting today. According to reports, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister invited the Pope to visit Canada for its 150th celebration. When the Prime Minister extended that invitation, Mr. Speaker, I would like to know, did he also ask the Pope if he would be willing to issue an apology when he comes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I just said, the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs has written to the provinces, territories, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Vatican to inform them of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Prime Minister, when he met with the Pope today, also drew attention to that letter, brought it to the attention. Mr. Speaker, we are taking action on the recommendations and are committed to a fair and lasting resolution of the legacy of Indian residential schools. We will continue to move forward in the spirit of reconciliation between non-Aboriginal and Aboriginal Canadians.
The honourable member for Random Durham St. George's.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives like to thump their chests and brag about trade deals, despite the fact that under their watch, Canada has experienced unprecedented trade deficits 52 times. Shameful. They just recorded the 2 worst monthly trade deficits in history. Terrible. This government continues to look for scapegoats for their incompetence, blaming others for their own inability to close a deal. When will the Conservatives stop the blame game and get CETA properly finalized and include the federal portion of the $400 million fund promise to Newfoundland and Labrador?
Great. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, no government has done more to advance Canada's trade interests than this Conservative government right here, Mr. Speaker. Our government has concluded free trade agreements with 38 countries and many, many more to come, Mr. Speaker. Had the member actually reviewed the stats, she would know that she would have found if you factor in the recent decline in energy prices, our exports are actually up 6.2% compared to the last year. Mr. Speaker, when they were in power, in 13 years, they got 3 deals done, Mr. Speaker, compared to our government since taking office has signed 38 free trade agreements with
Honourable member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, the average Canadian boomer, now near retirement, is more than $400,000 short of what they need to take care of themselves. Canada has a retirement income crisis. The Canadian Association of Retired Persons says the voluntary approach has not worked. 60% of Canadians want the Canada Pension Plan to be expanded, like Jim Flaherty recommended. Fragmented optional schemes, mostly designed for tax planning, simply don't get the job done. So why does this government keep insisting on failure?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal leader has confirmed that he would implement the Ontario Liberals' payroll tax on every worker and every small business man and woman in Canada. That means that for a worker who's earning $60,000 a year, the Liberal leader would impose a $1,000 tax hike. Mr. Speaker, this mandatory tax increase would kill jobs and force small businesses to either cut hours, wages, or in some cases, jobs. By contrast, under the strong leadership of our Prime Minister, we will give...
The Honourable Member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, it is unseemly for members of this government to accuse their own finance minister of not telling the truth. The finance minister has been clear. CPP premiums are not payroll taxes. They are investments in long-term individual security. They do not belong to the government. They always belong to the pensioner, and the CPP Investment Board is getting impressive results. That's what the minister said. At least 60% of Canadians want to build on that success. The provinces want to do the same thing. Yep. Jim Flaherty said it's the right thing to do. So why not?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, contrast what we're doing for Canadians to what they would do. We have lowered taxes for seniors and pensioners, but the Liberals would raise taxes for middle-class seniors. We created the tax-free savings account and increased the amount Canadians can save tax-free. But we know the Liberals dislike the tax-free savings account and would remove it. And they would remove the top-up that we provided for. We provided pension income splitting for seniors, Mr. Speaker. We know they don't like pension income splitting, and they would take it away.
Shame on the Liberals. Member for Nanaimo, Cowichan.
Mr. Speaker, just this week, this House adopted an important code of conduct for members, recognizing the seriousness and unacceptability of sexual harassment in our workplace. Yesterday, the Senate Speaker confirmed that Senator Meredith is now under investigation for workplace sexual harassment and bullying. Harassment of any form should not be tolerated in Parliament. Does the government agree that everyone working for this House and the Senate is entitled to a workplace free of harassment?
The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Thank you very much. Any allegations of harassment against women in the workplace must be taken very seriously. And our government has been focused on taking significant actions to make sure that Canadians are protected. Many of those, the opposition have voted against, whether it be those to make sure women are protected or making sure that women are empowered. The opposition parties continually vote against them.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Well, Mr. Speaker, unlike that government's tales of fanciful make-believe, this week the Auditor General reported on real misspending. Senators routinely traveling for personal business and billing taxpayers. In one case, the Auditor General found a senator's spouse spent over $10,000 on her own personal business, and the senator charged that to the public too. How can the members stand here and continue to defend this behavior? It just defies logic.
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Speaker, the absolute gall of that member sitting in that caucus to ask that question. We have said right from the beginning, any parliamentarian that deliberately misspends taxpayers' dollars ought to do the first thing, repay it back, and if it's deliberate, the courts will take action and they will suffer the consequences. There are 68 members of that caucus who have spent 3 times as much as the Auditor General found in the Senate. They owe the taxpayer $2.7 million, Mr. Speaker. Their own leader who hatched this scheme owes the taxpayers $400,000 and is refusing to pay it.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Well, more and more fantasy. Just like the offending senators, Conservatives are completely unrepentant. Conservatives promised to bring accountability and change, but instead they delivered expense claims to meet their tailors and bills for their fishing trips. Senators named in the report for their dubious claims actually set up an appeals process to dispute the Auditor General's findings. After promising to bring change to the Senate, how can that member stand here and defend the status quo?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you this. Canadians don't think it's fanciful to want their $2.7 million back from the NDP. They worked very hard for that money that they send here, and they want the 68 members of that caucus to send it back. It's not a fantasy that the member for Compton-Stanstead owes $142,000 to the Senate, Mr. Speaker. What the NDP needs to do, they need to look at themselves, look at Canadians, and just pay back the $2.7 million that they owe them. Do it now.
Member for La Pointe de l'Île. The Prime Minister, their leader, campaigned and promised, he said loudly and clearly, that he'd clean up the Senate. But the reality is that today, it's the same institution that is as corrupt as ever. Of the 14 senators who were named by the Auditor General for illegal expenses, who are now refusing to pay up and to refund their hockey games and golf games paid for by Canadians, that's not all. They even want to challenge the Auditor General's findings. Does the Prime Minister agree with the senators who refuse to refund the money, or does he accept the Auditor General's recommendations? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
As we said, it was the Senate that invited in the Auditor General to examine their expenses. He's tabled a report, and as we said all along, we expect that the senators will work with the Auditor General, Mr. Speaker. But at the same time as the Auditor General found 30 senators who have some dilemmas with their expenses, the House has found that some 68 members of Parliament have problems with their expenses. Now, all 68 of them happen to be NDP members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. The member who asked this question owes the taxpayers of her riding over $27,000, and she's refusing to pay it back.
The Honourable Member de La Pointe de l'Île. Now, come on. It's as though the Prime Minister would allow ministers from their departments to be assessed, who had been assessed by the Auditor General, to challenge the findings and refuse to implement them. It makes no sense, and it would never be acceptable. But apparently, the Conservatives have no problem with this when it's an issue of their senators, the ones that their Prime Minister appointed to the Senate. They have no problem charging for personal travel. Now, does the Prime Minister agree? Will he finally set up an independent oversight body, yes or no? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this is a member who on August 22nd submitted forms to the House of Commons suggesting that this member was going to hire somebody to work out of an office in Ottawa. On September 22nd, this member confirmed again that this office would be in Ottawa, Mr. Speaker. Against the rules of this House, against taxpayers' wishes, this member then funneled money out of her constituency to an illegal office in Montreal, along with 67 other members of that party, Mr. Speaker. They should do the right thing and pay back the $2.7 million that they owe taxpayers.
The honourable member for Burnaby New Westminster.
Mr. Speaker, the answers are really not good. The Prime Minister promised to put an end to corruption and to clean up the Senate, but obviously he's not kept his promise. And judging by the Auditor General's report, the Senator is more than dysfunctional, and the problem of illegal expenses is rampant. Canadians demand what's happened with the Conservatives' rhetoric. Why do they no longer believe in change, Mr. Speaker? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, curious coming from that member because we were both on a panel not long ago, and he was asked how he would pay back the $170,000 that he owed the taxpayers, Mr. Speaker. And what the member said was this: no, no, no. Well, first off, Peter, those figures. They go for the previous person in that office, mainly the member for Skeena-Balkley Valley, Mr. Speaker. So he admitted that there was a debt. He said it was the member for Skeena-Balkley Valley's debt. We know that they tried to rip taxpayers off by only paying back 10% of the debt. Pay back the full $2.7 million you owe.
The honourable member for Burnaby New Westminster.
Here's another fairy tale, Mr. Speaker. Once upon a time, Conservatives came to Ottawa and promised so much before they broke all those promises. They promised to stand up for everyday Canadians, to end entitlements, to fight against waste and corruption. They were going to clean up this place, and a big part of that was making changes to the Senate. Remember the Triple-E Senate, Mr. Speaker? But that was then, and this is now. And now the Parliamentary Secretary of the Prime Minister is reduced to arguing that changing the Senate just isn't possible. What changed, Mr. Speaker? Why did these Conservatives give up all that they stood for? Why have they failed?
The honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Prime Minister.
Speaker, this gentleman just called the words that I quoted a fairy tale. Unfortunately for him, they're his words, Mr. Speaker. These are the things that he said while he was throwing the member for Skeena-Balkley Valley under the bus, Mr. Speaker. He admitted there's a $189,000 debt, but it wasn't his. No, no, no. It was the previous occupant of the House Leader's office. It's the member for Skeena-Balkley Valley's debt. Well, look, Mr. Speaker, there's one taxpayer. You owe them $2.7 million. Pay it.
I will once again have to remind the honourable Parliamentary Secretary to address his comments through the chair and not directly at other members. Sometimes it leads to a little bit of disorder, which we seem to be experiencing now. The honourable member for Scarborough-Rouge River is next.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have already spent $13 million on a witch hunt against Canadian charities that disagree with them. And now the Canadian Bar Association is warning that loopholes in the criminal code could allow the Conservatives to target legitimate charities and accuse them of funding terrorists. People are worried that the real target here are charities that disagree with Conservative policies. Will the government fix the loophole instead of leaving the law open to abuse?
Speaker, the CRA is focused on ensuring that money is not flowing to terrorist organizations who seek to harm Canadians. This is part of our commitment to keep Canadians safe from those who wish to further the goals of the international jihadist movement. In fact, the Prime Minister recently announced additional resources to further strengthen the CRA's ability to crack down on those who seek to abuse the generosity of Canada's charitable sector. Unlike what the opposition would have us do, we will not sit on the sidelines. We will address the threat. That is
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, what the Minister has just said is the opposite of the truth. The Canadian Bar Association has stated that the section of the Criminal Code on financing terrorist activities lacks clarity. These companies are doing good work, and the government wants to spend another $10 million to go after them. We're getting close to McCarthyism here. Will the Conservatives clarify the criminal code so that no charities will be unfairly targeted? The Honourable Parliamentary
Speaker, the rules regarding charities and their activities are long-standing and well-known. When it comes to this issue of terrorist financing, I am amazed that the opposition would not want us to do the job before us. And that job is to focus on ensuring that money is not flowing to terrorist organizations that mean to do harm to Canadians. Canada has been named by the international jihadist movement, and they remain a threat to Canadians and the safety of our communities. These additional monies will further strengthen our abilities to look at terrorist financing, and we will continue to address this.
Honourable Member for St. Paul.
7 years ago today in this chamber, the Prime Minister apologized to the survivors of residential schools. Today, the Prime Minister was given the unique opportunity to take the first step towards reconciliation. One of the TRC's key calls to action was for the Pope to apologize for the Catholic Church's role in this cultural genocide. Today, at the meeting with His Holiness, the Prime Minister did not ask him to apologize. Apparently, he merely referred to a letter from his Aboriginal Affairs Minister, which does not even ask for an apology. Why?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs has written to the Vatican to draw their attention to the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Prime Minister met with the Pope today and drew attention to that letter as well. Mr. Speaker, it was our Prime Minister that made that historic apology on behalf of all Canadians in 2008. There's no place in Canada for the attitudes that allowed the Indian residential school system to take place. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation to take concrete measures to benefit Aboriginal Canadians and non-Aboriginals alike.
Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Louis. According to scientists, climate change poses an enormous danger to our planet, as well as to the dignity of its peoples, often the most disadvantaged, who have to endure the worst consequences of this scourge. What excuse is the Prime Minister offering to the Holy Father for his government's flagrant lack of action in the face of this growing threat? Did he tell him that it is completely insane to act through stricter regulation of the oil and gas sectors? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Our record. Canada has one of the world's cleanest electricity supplies in the world, with nearly 80% emitting no greenhouse gases. We were the first major coal user to ban the construction of traditional coal-fired electricity generation, as coal is one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the entire world. The fact is, emissions have gone down under our government, and per capita emissions remain at a historic low. And we're doing this without the job-killing carbon tax, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has completed his photo op tour with a visit to Pope Francis, who took his pontifical name from St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of the environment. In his latest photo op, Pope Francis didn't look too impressed. Having met with the Prime Minister, who is the international laggard-in-chief on climate change, may explain the Pope's disgruntled appearance. Can the Minister tell us why Pope Francis looked so impressed? And did he call on the Prime Minister to be serious about climate change?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I find it rich coming from a Liberal member. When they were in government, they did absolutely nothing to address climate change. Our government is taking a sensible approach. We'll continue to implement responsible sector-by-sector regulatory approach that is aligned with our major economic competitors, like the United States, to ensure that Canada's economic competitiveness is protected. We have invested significantly to support initiatives that reduce emissions and improve air quality for Canadians, and we will be investing $1 billion into transit annually. We plan to reduce methane emissions from the oil and gas sector, regulate the production of chemicals and nitrogen fertilizers, and regulate emissions from natural...
The honourable member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians need to know that the medications they're taking are safe, but the Minister of Health has completely dropped the ball on drug safety. Inadequate inspections and a complete unwillingness to actually enforce the rules. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are now allowing drug ingredients to enter Canada that come from factories overseas that have never been inspected. They're trusting the companies to inspect themselves. Why are the Conservatives failing to ensure the safety of prescription drugs taken by Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, the member knows that's not true. Whenever there has been factual evidence in front of us, we've acted and we have ensured that any products or drugs are not allowed into Canada if there are any safety risks. In terms of ingredients, Health Canada is now beginning to work further to strengthening the screening of drug ingredients. But let's remember, in terms of actual drug products that come into the market, all drugs are reviewed for sale to ensure safety. There's also drug safety reviews that are posted online proactively that can be seen transparently. They're also posting drug safety inspection summaries online transparently.
The
honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian pharmaceutical industry imports substances from more than 2,000 foreign labs to produce pharmaceutical products. Health Canada has acknowledged itself that they can only inspect 10 labs per year. So, Health Canada trusts the inspections conducted by the labs themselves. How do we know if these labs truly conform with Health Canada regulations? Will the minister correct the situation and stop playing with the health of Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, we've been clear that we won't tolerate any drug safety risks, and Health Canada does have a process in place to ensure that any importation of drug ingredients or drug products go through a process to ensure safety and effectiveness of drugs sold, and where our inspectors aren't unable to be, we use inspectors such as the FDA.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. The Conservatives have once again shown their lack of understanding on issues affecting Canadians' health. The Supreme Court unanimously confirmed today that medical marijuana can be used in different forms. And the regulations imposed by the Conservatives, therefore, is a breach of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Will the Conservatives stop their political games and prioritize the health of Canadians on the issue of medical marijuana? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, marijuana is not an approved drug or medicine in Canada. It is not approved by Health Canada to be used as a medicine or treatment. What happened today is what happened 10 years ago, that judges have decided to displace Health Canada as the health regulator and decide that a drug is a medicine. And that is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to remind Canadians that there are very serious health risks with marijuana, particularly for youth. The evidence for youth is irrefutable. That is clear. It can result in very serious mental health issues like psychosis and schizophrenia.
The honourable member for Victoria. Mr. Speaker, today another unanimous loss for the Conservatives in the Supreme Court of Canada. The court was very clear. The regulations limiting medical marijuana use to smoking had nothing to do with the health and safety of patients. But unfortunately, when it comes to medical marijuana, the Conservatives continually choose to play politics rather than respecting the health and safety of patients. This judgment today will help many Canadians who shouldn't have to take up smoking in order to get the medical benefits from doctor-prescribed marijuana. Will the Conservatives abide by the judgment of the Supreme Court of Canada?
Mr. Speaker, I'll continue to remind Canadians that there's a process Medical treatments need to actually meet very strict Health Canada requirements so that patients can be assured that they are safe and effective. That means clinical trials, that means scientific evidence, that means safety reviews, that means a regulatory process through Health Canada. This is not what happened today, it's not what happened 10 years ago. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, judges think that they can make decisions where medical experts should be making the decision.
The honourable member for South Surrey, White Rock, Cloverdale.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to know that they are safe within their communities. They want to know that their loved ones are protected. The people of my community want to be able to enjoy life without fear of gang-related violence in their neighbourhoods, and they know that only our Conservative government can deliver on a solid, tough-on-crime agenda. Can the Minister of Public Safety update this House as to the situation on the ground in Surrey?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for his work, and I'd also like to tell him that it's our government's priority to make our communities safer. That is why
First 20 members committed to Surrey is underway and that boots are already on the ground. What is clear also, Mr. Speaker, is that while our Conservative government has passed over 30 new measures to crack down on crime, including new prison sentences for drive-by shooting, investing millions in crime prevention, the Liberals and the NDP oppose those measures every step of the way, Mr. Speaker, while we Conservatives are delivering.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, in terms of oil transportation, the Conservatives are making it up on the fly. We've learned that the Canadian Coast Guard's new intervention plan in the event of an oil spill includes only the Quebec City to Anticosti Island area along the St. Lawrence. However, studies linked to this show that the environmental risk index was very high along the entire St. Lawrence River from Valleyfield to Quebec. How can the government justify that it's excluded from the world-class tanker security system, the segment between Quebec City and Montreal?
Mr. Speaker, obviously we are pursuing the most ambitious trade agenda in Canadian history, and at the same time, we have to make sure that we're ready for that increase in traffic. After consultations with interested parties along the St. Lawrence in our budget 2015, our government expanded the pilot project area to include traffic along the river from Montreal to Anticosti Island. Now, if that opposite member had actually read the budget and voted in favour of it, he would have been on the same side of the issue as we now are.
The Honourable Member for Brassard-la-Prairie. Well, Mr. Speaker, that minister should talk to the other minister about what's happening, because on the one hand, we've got the Coast Guard saying that only the part from Anticosti Island to Quebec is included in the plan. On the other, Transport Canada is talking about it going to Montreal. So it's really not clear. And when a spill occurs, we don't have time to ask questions. The officials want effective intervention. What will the minister do to clarify the situation and protect people? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this seems to be a case where they can't take yes for an answer, because clearly I've already just indicated that we have expanded the pilot project area to include the traffic on the river from Montreal to Anticosti Island.
The Honourable Member for Beauharnois-Salaberry. Mr. Speaker, the Catherine Spirit is another threat to the St. Lawrence. After 4 winters being moored to a wharf in Beauharnois, it's still in Lac Saint-Louis, and it could in fact have an impact on the water supply. The people in the area are saying there's a number of acts of violence, vandalism against the boat, and it would be, in fact, a disaster for the ecosystem if it were to catch fire. Will the minister finally take some action and have the Catherine Spirit moved off Lac Saint-Louis once and for all? The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, with respect to Canadians' health and safety, that is our top priority, and indeed vessel owners have to comply with stringent safety and environmental obligations before proceeding with towing operations. And it's for that reason that the Catherine Spirit is under a departure prohibition from Transport Canada, and it will remain in place until the final inspection has been taken out and it confirms that all regulations are being complied with.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Tuesday, torrential rains caused significant damage in the eastern townships, more specifically in Coaticook and Compton. Scores of people had to be evacuated when more than 80 millimeters of rain fell in just a few short hours. Many people and businesses sustained major damage. For these farmers and small business owners, these sums are very high. What will the government do to help our region that has been affected by these serious floods? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, there are communities that are affected by natural disasters, and that is why our government has strengthened provisions being used to help communities through a well-established mechanism. As you know, we did so in Lake Megantic. There are factors that need to be put in place to trigger it, but I'd like to remind the member opposite that we've also gone ahead with measures to prevent and to natural disasters and whatnot, but we couldn't count on the support of the member opposite.
Mr. Speaker, it's the most predictable thing in Canadian politics. Someone says Muslim, and a Conservative minister says terrorist. Yesterday, when asked about rising hate crimes against Muslims, the Public Safety Minister felt obliged to talk about terrorists. We also saw yesterday that the Immigration Minister assumes all Muslim women who wear the veil are terrorists, unless proven otherwise. This is simply unacceptable, so will he apologize to all Muslim Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship and Immigration. Mr. Speaker, that is, of course, not what I said. And if the Honourable Member wishes to repeat those remarks outside of this chamber, we will have a reckoning with him on the facts of this matter. Mr. Speaker, the real question is, why will the Liberal Party not tell the truth about their sorry record on immigration over decades and their inability, unwillingness to do anything to face up to the real threat of terrorism in this day and age, Mr. Speaker? They have done nothing to strengthen our measures to revoke terrorism, to cancel passports, to take action against ICE.
Honourable Member for Markham Unionville.
It's obvious from the minister's previous statement that he equates terrorism with kneecaps. When only Muslims face a rise in hate crimes, it's obvious this government's toxic anti-Muslim rhetoric is a part of the problem. As when he talks about plotting terrorist plots in mosques, this is the only Prime Minister in my lifetime who sinks to attack a whole community for political gain. Will he at least apologize to Muslim Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, those are the most outrageous untruths I have yet to hear in this place, Mr. Speaker. This is the only party in this Parliament that is taking action to protect Muslims and other Canadians from the threat of terrorism. Mr. Speaker, I would invite that member to apologize for decades of racism by his party under Mackenzie King, blocking South Asians from coming to this country, blocking East Asians from coming to this country, blocking Caribbeans from coming to this country, the injustice of backlogs under the Trudeau regime. In the Chrétien era, Mr. Speaker, it is that party that has been the racist party in this Parliament over decades.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Whoa.
Whoa. Mr. Speaker, several airlines have dropped their agreement with the aviation fuel service provider in Montreal and Toronto, and dismantling this consortium will jeopardize some 300 good jobs. The union is threatening to lodge a complaint for unloyal practices, and there must be a time for the Canada Industrial Relations Board to make a decision before the consortium is dismantled. Will the Conservatives make it possible so this labour conflict doesn't occur?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question from the Honourable Member, and will confer with the Minister of Labour on the matter with respect to airlines and regulation labour situations.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Well, let's try again because we have hundreds of jobs at risk here. Mr. Speaker, Air Canada and other airlines have walked away from long-term contracts for aviation fuel services in Montreal and Toronto, resulting in the mass termination of more than 300 workers. Wow. The Canada Industrial Relations Board is now looking into multiple complaints of unfair labour practices. Again, will the Conservatives work with the companies and the workers to find a resolution, and will they halt the shutdown until the board has finished its investigation?
That's it. The Honourable Minister of Labour.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I think the member opposite knows, the Canada Industrial Relations Board is an independent body and will make their decision in due time. What we are doing at the Labour program, though, with our mediators and conciliators, we are continuing to work with both parties to make sure that they come to resolution of their issues. We know that when parties work together, they come up with the best solutions for their workplaces, and we intend to help them get to a good solution.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray Athabasca.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the opposition who are planning to raise taxes, our Conservative government is providing direct benefits to help 100% of families make ends meet.
That's true.
Can the Minister of State for Social Development please update the House on our plan for tax relief for Canadian families?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member from Fort McMurray for that question. Mr. Speaker, recently I met Patricia. Patricia is a mom with 3 children from Vaughan, and she has a home business. She's a young entrepreneur. She's thrilled about our universal child care benefit expansion and increase because it allows her to be able to stay home, look after her children, and run her business at the same time. Mr. Speaker, you know what our support does? It helps every parent in Canada, regardless of what kind of job they have, whether they work from home or outside the home, whether they use a licensed child care or unlicensed. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to provide direct support to Canadian families.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, a parent who wants to sell a family business to his son or daughter, his or her son or daughter, would be penalized under the Income Tax Act. So now, if someone sells to a foreigner, they can, in fact, have access to over $800,000 in capital gains deductions, but nothing for a child. With Canada's aging population, in a context where we want to promote economic growth and job creation, will the Conservatives support Bill 691 in order to correct this iniquity?
Mr. Speaker, we have eliminated the capital gains tax for fishers up to $1 million. And I hope that the opposition will support this very important measure. Also, we've done the same for farmers. We will take a look, as we always do, at private members' bill and make a determination on the merits.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. USW Local 1005 President Gary Howe said, "Our members and our community don't trust U.S. Steel or this government to do what's best for workers and pensioners, and it's easy to see why. Workers, Stelco retirees, and the City of Hamilton are in court yet again to force the Conservatives to reveal the contents of the secret deal they made with U.S. Steel. Now, we all know the Conservatives failed to stand up for the workers of Hamilton, but why are they still refusing to give them the details so they can at least stand up for themselves?"
The Honourable Permanent Secretary of Consideration.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is against the law for the Government of Canada to release this information without the consent of the company. It is up to the company to make this information public. Our government is the only government in Canadian history to take a company to court in order to ensure that they meet their Investment Canada commitments, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, a recent report by the Chamber of Commerce said that 13,000 new jobs will be created in Hamilton, driven primarily by the manufacturing sector. Mr. Speaker, thanks to the great work of this Canadian government, this finance minister, on the economy.
The Honourable Member for Chatham-Kent, Essex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with 1 in 5 jobs in Canada dependent on exports, our government understands the importance of opening new markets. While the NDP and Liberals want to raise taxes and hurt jobs, we have launched the most ambitious pro-export plan in Canadian history. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade please advise this House as to what is next in Canada's pursuit of trade?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me first start by thanking the hardworking member for Chatham-Kent, Essex, Mr. Speaker. Today, the Minister of International Trade announced that he will lead a multi-sector trade mission to Israel focused on supporting small and medium-sized businesses. Canada deeply values its close ties with Israel. As the Prime Minister highlighted during his state visit in 2014, Israel is an example to the world, a nation whose response to suffering has been to build an extraordinary society, a vibrant democracy, and an innovative, world-leading startup nation. Mr. Speaker, our government is ambitious about what our countries can achieve together.
The Honourable Member for Barre-Chaudieu, Nicolas Bécancourt. Mr. Speaker, the federal government unilaterally decided to authorize super-tanker transport between Montreal and Quebec City. Now the Federalist parties have agreed to allow oil to go through Quebec, whether Quebec likes it or not. It's quite ironic that Quebec must still today fight to have a say over what happens on its territory. Will the Minister of the Environment live up to her title and stop imposing all of these economic, social, and environmental risks on the people of Quebec to boost profits for Western oil companies? The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, we are embarking upon Canada's most ambitious trade agenda, and in doing so, we want to ensure that we are able to get our goods to market and to receive goods from other markets as well. That's the importance of the St. Lawrence River to us, to make sure that we can flow goods as far into the continent as possible. I'm very proud of all the ports, all the federal ports along the river there, be it from Port Sept-Îles all the way to the Port of Montreal, who do great service for Canadians and are an important part of our chain.
That concludes question period for today, but we have one more question. It being Thursday, we'll have the Thursday question.
Well, I have good news, Mr. Speaker, because next week is the last full week in the life of this government before the elections. And
Speaker, this week, shocking revelations around the Senate, both Liberal and Conservative members, that has led to numerous criminal charges and many police investigations. So my question to my colleague from the government House Leader, since this is my second to last question, Thursday question, what is the government going to do in their last complete week, next week, to clean up the Senate, and what else is going to be on the agenda? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, and I saw that my friend, the Opposition House Leader, was out in the foyer of the House of Commons yesterday having a press conference where he showcased the incredible productivity of the House of Commons during the 41st Parliament. Of course, these were actually Conservative initiatives he had on display, passed through our diligent, hard-working, orderly